Hello, everybody, and welcome to Matrix Live, Season 2, Episode 17, coming from the Goldfish Bowl, New Vaxo Limited. Horrible day outside today. I think we had our summer last week, so we're not doing it from the balcony, otherwise we get very wet. And instead, let's talk about Matrix. So, exciting times, and France confirmed at last that the next-gen secure intra-governmental messaging app is indeed built on Matrix and a fork of Riot.
Yeah, so we had the official PR going out last week from DINSIC, the Department of Digital, basically, of the French government. And this week we put out our own blog post about it, which went crazily viral, so it was great.
It seems that people are actually share our enthusiasm for this, which was nice. It was actually my birthday yesterday, and I thought that we'll put out the blog post as a quick thing before going out the door for the day, only for it to go. So, moral there is not to ship code or go and write random blog posts just before going home.
You don't have there is news on the GSOC side.
Yes,
as well.
GSOC is announced, or was announced this week. We had, I think, getting on for 30 applications, quality of which was genuinely way higher than we'd seen before. And we had a big fight internally between who we would accept, with people petitioning for different things. It actually boiled down to whether we wanted to go and support people adding IPFS content repository support, or whether we should be looking at some of the other things too. In the end, unfortunately, IPFS support got ditched, but in favour of the projects which we end up doing ourselves as Matrix.org is adding end-to-end encryption to the Python SDK, which will be really useful for anybody writing bots and bridges in Python. And Zel0 or Zel0 is going to be working on that. Then, really exciting, and we've had a lot of feedback from the community already on this, is implementing a decentralized push notification protocol, which may or may not be actual Matrix, or it might be something else that Badrul Chowdhury is looking at. And the idea is that this could be something usable for any old app, especially on things like F-Droid, where you don't have GCM or FCM in order to host your own push service. Finally, we've got AP Whitehat coming to work on Dendrite stuff. Ironically, AP Whitehat applied for us last year on GSOC in order to do alternative push transports. So we've ended up accepting him this year. Well, somebody else is doing the project he wanted to do. But this time he'll be working on Dendrite instead. And he's been doing loads of PRs to Dendrite anyway over the last couple of weeks. So excitement there. Even more exciting, for the first time ever, we have two other GSOCers working in the Matrix ecosystem. In this instance, they're part of the GNOME project, working on Fractal. There's Aisha working on UX, and there's Julian working on UI improvements in general. So it's really cool to see Google funding students to go and work on Fractal as well. And well done to the GNOME guys to getting them involved.
Yeah, that's really, really fun. On the Riot Web side of things, within the team around us here, so we have been committing to a two weekly, bi-weekly? No, how is it?
I have no idea whether it's bi-weekly
every
or
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks we're going to release.
So that we don't get lost into 3 months, 6 month things like we did for another 14, for example. So the release candidates will get starting from Wednesday.
So for this week, that was 2 days ago.
Yeah. And then the release itself will happen on the Monday to just after, so that people can play with it, can play with the release candidate.
It's actually been really useful to do it on this cycle, because we cut the first release candidate on Wednesday. I think we're now up to 4 release candidates on it, as we keep iterating based on the feedback. So the system is working so far.
And so hopefully Monday, new release to /app of Riot. Well, of course, it's flexible. We'll see how it goes, and whether we need to rush out fixes all year.
Yeah, but if it's more than 2 weeks between releases, it means that something's probably screwed up.
Indeed. Otherwise, we have Dave working on finally hooking Jitsi as a default conferencing system in Riot. Since it's been a year since we've been starting this
a bit
project.
Less than a year, but it's basically just making sure if you hit the video call button in a room, it fires up a Jitsi rather than a free switch.
Yeah, in a group chat.
Yep.
We still have to fix the one-to-ones flakiness. And tech guy has been Michael has been working on the replies, and it's looking great. And basically, it's waiting for alignment with the mobile side of things before merging it, because we need mobile to be able to display them properly as well once they've been sent from web. And next up on Riot Web, the end-to-end cross-signing. So yay, progress on end-to-end.
Yeah, this is going to kill almost all of the points where you need to verify people's devices, and will hopefully make the world a much better place. Dave is all queued up, ready to hack on it. I did a bunch of prep work already on the UX. I need to hand it over to him, and let's see what happens.
On the mobile side of things, we had new releases last week.
This week.
It was this week, yeah. Weekend is not gone yet. And it's mainly supporting stickers viewing and fixing the Android push notification stuff. So please tell us if you're still having problems with notifications on Android, because it should be fixed as much as possible.
Yeah, as far as I know, we think that we've got it fixed properly. Yeah. So if you're still got sticky notifs or missing them, or it's unreliable, yell loud. Yeah. #riot-android:/matrix.org.
We also had Benoit joining. He was like 2 weeks ago now, and he's been doing a huge audit on all the Android side of things, and started to add Kotlin support today, and establishing a proper roadmap for the Android work, including all the tooling around it, and it's looking really good. So Android community should be, and users will be happy. And otherwise, the team has been mostly progressing on the government stuff in parallel. On the back-end side of things?
Yeah, so lots and lots happening on the back-end side of things. I'll try to go quick. So Synapse Land and kind of spec land as well. We've been doing a lot of thought about GDPR stuff, and especially a thought experiment to see whether we can push it to the limit in terms of giving the best possible privacy that no one can sort of theoretically get out of Matrix, rather than doing the bare minimum that it might require. Now, we don't know whether we're going to commit to doing this, but we've been doing the thought experiment anyway. In practice, this has been Roach mainly, a bit of Eric and a bit of me going and comparing notes on the strategy here. Deliberately not doing it in a public room for now, because honestly, it's been a series of dead ends as we keep running into walls and trying to work out how to address it, as well as it frankly being a bit scary in terms of the size of the changes that we've been throwing around. However, we're getting to the point of actually having a proposal that we can share to get feedback from the whole community. If we had more time and if we had more people, then perhaps this would have all been done in the public sort of eye from the outset. But hopefully everybody agrees that there is some benefit to trying to get it right in your own sort of internal thoughts before then going and proposing at least something that might work to the community. So what does it mean? Is basically the idea that we need to support right to erasure. I delete everything you ever said in Matrix, so that if you say something stupid and change your mind later on, you have the right to back down on that. So if you go and join some particularly embarrassing community and say some embarrassing things there, when you grow up later on, you have the option to try to have a clean start, which I think is fair. And we can do this to some extent today using mega redact or redactions, the idea that you can redact everything you ever said. And in fact, jumping over to this week in Matrix, we did see one wonderful project that got missed last week called Matrix STFU from the XWiki guys. I imagine that's it's all the guys over there, CJD and folks working or previously working at XWiki. This sounds like a mega redact button that allows you to nuke everything a user ever said. But the problem is that today the metadata is still stuck in the room forever. So you can see who said something and when they said it, and that can be very revealing. If I went and joined, I don't know, hash embarrassing Sheltie photos on matrix.org and keep posting lots of messages, then change my mind one day and try to remove it. The fact that at matthewonmatrix.org has still been very actively present in that room in the past could be a bit embarrassing for me. So we've basically been looking at how to pseudonymize MXIDs. I mentioned this briefly last week. It's moved on a lot since then. The idea is to add in this abstraction layer that will separate MXIDs as we have them today from the identifiers used on messages. And the idea is to use elliptic curve, or actually Edwards curve 25519 public keys for identifiers, both for users and for rooms. So we're going to be changing the format of the IDs potentially if this happens. And we then have this abstraction layer that maps through your matrix ID through to that key, such that if you want to eliminate your evidence of having been in a room, you just remove that mapping. And the keys will be different per room, so you can't correlate people between rooms, and this is really exciting in terms of a data privacy perspective, so that if I were to GDPR myself out of Matrix forever, all you do is to redact the message contents, remove the mappings, and then it's just going to be a whole bunch of uncorrelatable messages which could have been sent by anybody in those respective rooms. So that's basically the idea. Whether we do it or not, or how rapidly we do this, depends on what legal advice we get on the GDPR side of things. We're still talking to lawyers about what our actual commitments are, but we think it's wise to think about the worst case scenario here. And finally, we will obviously try to do this keeping the CS API looking as similar as possible. And in general, people haven't been assuming that our IDs look the way they do today under the hood. So we're hoping it won't be that painful. And there's something else I wanted to say about it.
It's also helping in terms of performances.
Yes, well, not just performance. It potentially helps us all over the shop. We've realised it could help join room performance particularly, because you no longer need to check server validity because it's done per user validity rather than server validity. Gives us account migration because you can just remove the mapping and then add a new mapping to a new server, which is just massive. Helps us move towards peer-to-peer networks, so we could potentially decouple from DNS entirely and say, hey, let's use a DHT and your public key as an entry in that DHT. It'd be really fun to use it with libp2p.js or those sort of things. What else does it potentially give us? It might get away from perspectives for validating server keys, because if server keys aren't very important anymore, then we don't need to validate them, so we don't have the mess that we have today of trying to get consensus on whether a server is who they say they are via perspectives. And finally, it might solve the problem of domain name reuse, where today, if you reuse your domain, then you can end up in a horrible mess with your Matrix services getting kind of entangled with the previous domain owner and the new one. So basically, it's a massive change, a V2 thing. If we go ahead with it, it will involve replacing the rooms which exist today with V2 format rooms. And so you can imagine one day people might find that Matrix HQ has been migrated to V2. Please rejoin it here, or you find yourself automatically rejoined to the new room, and we somehow stitch the history back together. Migration is going to be tough. We should have a formal proposal for this coming up fairly soon, and then everybody can tear it to shreds and argue about whether we want to do this and how they want to do it. Also, in terms of big changes, Eric's incremental state resolution stuff has been progressing well. He's been implementing it. We expect to see code landing next week and see whether it works as well as we think it will. Apparently it works really well for big fragmented IRC rooms. It doesn't work so well for things like hash off topic, which is more of a symmetrically fragmented thing, but he found some heuristics which improve the performance from like 50% of the time it makes it way better up to 80% of the time for hash off topic it makes it way better. So really, really exciting to see that stuff. Also, lots of Python 3 stuff coming in still from Notafel. Thank you. Ops-wise, the server has almost stayed up this week, which is unusual, although it's horribly overloaded, so Freenode has almost been unusable. Yeah. I'm sorry, as soon as Eric's stuff lands, hopefully it will get much better. And finally, we've started using Ansible in production as of yesterday, which is super exciting. The playbooks definitely need iteration still. but as a first iteration to see how it looks, at least we're using it ourselves. We'll make a big fuss when it's ready for other people to use it. Dendrite, massive update. Nothing's happened because we've been doing all the other things. Then spec stuff.
So it's Ben who's been working on a specific page to list all the specs that we have around, so that it's much easier to navigate and find them. So hopefully this should be helpful.
Indeed. And, it'll be a massive change. Right now, you have no idea what spec proposals are out there, what phase they're in. So we're going to be putting an index page. It will be matrix.org/docs/spec/proposals, and it will have a grid listing the various things in progress. And it will be things like event formats, last updated 3 months ago, state, stalled, or I don't know, well-known URIs, state in review or needing review, and things like version 2, MXID, reshuffle, whatever we were just talking about, work in progress, not yet ready for review.
We also have the Trimatrix Now page, which has landed.
Yep.
I don't know in which state it is.
It's there, it's usable. It's, I think the metadata needs a bit more work perhaps, but the page itself is up, and huge thanks to Ben for going and updating all the projects there. In fact, we've now got the point that some people said, my project wasn't ready to go on the page, please can we remove it? So we've gone to the other extreme now of having too many projects on the Trimatrix Now page, but either way it's up to like 150 or 200 or something crazy, which is fun. Is there anything else in This Week in Matrix that we should talk about?
We need to end with this.
Oh, we should.
Do we have anything before?
Basically, lots of releases on a whole bunch of clients. There's another release of MXISD to fix up things which happened in the big 1.0 release last week. And this is awesome.
So it's an article that Jureg pointed us at on itsfast.com.
Written by Shirish.
Yeah, go ahead. Because I'm not familiar with it. So
you didn't read it? It's a great article.
I just discovered it. I missed completely the thing.
I found it at the time by vanity searching us on Twitter, I think. But either way, I did miss the amazing quote on it from Shirish, which is, without Matrix, Riot would be like a body without a soul. Which I think is very apt, right? Would be yet another faceless messaging system, but Matrix is the soul that powers us all. Talking about souls, am I allowed to show off my socks?
I wanted to end on a kind of philosophical tone, like Matrix is the soul, is our soul.
That binds us
everyone,
together.
blah, blah, blah. That binds us together, blah, blah, blah. And you come and want to show off your socks.
I was also going to aim for an amazing pun about on the word soul, because we can go for the souls which bind us together to the soles of my feet, which have got these amazing Illuminati socks, which were given to me by the guy who designed the about.riot.im website years ago. And I lost them for a year, and I found them again today, and I'm very happy about it.
Congratulations.
Was that what you were aiming for?
This was amazing.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening, and next week I think could be really quite an interesting one with the incremental stuff hopefully landing, and watch this space. Do we miss anything else? I feel like we missed something else. Possibly not.
So. Yeah, I think it's...
Thanks to everybody who sent in updates for This Week in Matrix, by the way, and hopefully it's useful. Please give us feedback, give Ben feedback, and have a great weekend. Speak to you soon.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.